Hi, welcome to this tutorial on Intro to Adobe Photoshop. This is part 3, and in this video we're going to be looking at basic selections, how to copy and paste, using 3 tools for making selections: the lasso, the magic wand, and the quick selection tool. So I'll just hop over to Photoshop now. So this is the file that I've been working on, and as you can see it's looking pretty messy, but we're just trying out a few techniques here. So what is a selection? A selection is a way of delineating or demarcating a part of one layer. So you first choose which layer you want to make a selection on, and then you use the selection to indicate that something should happen to only one part of that layer. I'll show you why that's a problem now. So if I would like to paint over here, I'll get a new colour, brush tool, and I'll get some nice deep green, and I will change the brush size to something a little bit more manageable, and maybe just knock the hardness down a little bit. If I paint over here, it's very hard to control where things end up. So if I want like a crisscross pattern, but I'd actually like it in the shape, the overall shape, to be a circle, well, that's actually really hard to achieve manually just by freehanding it. What would be easier is if I had a circle shape that I could only paint within that circle. I can use a selection for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step backwards. So I'm going to use this is Alt or Option, Command, Control Z. Just keep pressing that, and all those green pieces will undo. So it's like multiple undos. To make the selection, I'm going to use a Marquee Tool, and these are up here right beside the Move tool. They're one of the very early tools that Photoshop had, and if I click and hold we can see that there are 4 different types of marquee. There's the rectangular, the elliptical, and then 2 single row marquees. I'm going to work with the elliptical marquee for now. When I change to this tool I get little crosshairs. This is the area that I'd like to select. I want a circular shape on that yellow, so I'm just going to click and drag, and we can see it makes this elliptical shape. To make it a perfect circle, if I push Shift on the keyboard, it will pop to a perfect circle. I'm just holding Shift now, and I'm dragging with my mouse, and I can get it to the size that I want. So I'm happy with that, and I'm going to click, let go of the mouse, and then let go of Shift on the keyboard. Now this is what's known as marching ants. So it's a little black and white outline. It's a temporary outline. It's not part of the artwork. And it's just showing me where the edge of this selection is. So this is the active area in here, and it means that this area outside of my selection is not active, and I'm currently on this background layer. Let's go back and get that brush tool again, same settings, same green, and this time I'm going to try and paint lines to make a pattern. So you can see I'm starting outside the circle and finishing outside the circle. And now my artwork has been finished neatly into the overall shape of a circle. If I zoom in a bit, the selection is still active. I'm going to reduce the size of my brush, and we end up making like a plaid sort of pattern there. Anyway, you get the idea. You can use the selection tool to act as like a ring fence. Once I'm done with the selection, I need to turn the selection off. That's known as deselecting something. So if I come up to the select menu up here, click on select, and then choose deselect, the keyboard shortcut is Control or Command D. Try that out on the keyboard because you'll be using lots of it. Okay, so this is now done and finished. If I pushed Control or Command D by accident and the selection, the marching ants went away and I actually need them back, you can come up to the select menu and choose reselect and they'll pop back up again, which is really handy. Just going to turn those off for now. We're going to have a look at a couple of other selection methods now. Quickly, the rectangular marquee works very similarly. I'm going to zoom in here. I really like this piece, so I'm going to click and drag around it. Again, if I want it square, hold Shift, but if I don't want a square, I can just drag it to where I'm happy, drop it once you're happy, and I'm just going to go Control C and then Control V. Control C is copy and Control V is paste. So again, using the keyboard shortcuts, and you might not see anything on the page here, but over here we've actually got a new layer. I'm going to go back and get my default tool. Remember the Move tool? Grab the Move tool and Layer 2, which has just appeared. This is this new one that Photoshop's made for us, has just appeared, is selected. Using the Move tool, click anywhere and drag, and it has made a copy of that part of the layer. So the background layer had a rectangular marquee. I used Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and it automatically made another layer for me. One tool which is really handy is the Lasso Tool. So once again, it's got a few different options in here. The standard Lasso Tool lets you draw a shape, and you draw a rough loop. So I draw like that, and you see where it crossed over. It's not a perfect shape, really good for quick, rough selections. The keyboard shortcut for the lasso is L. If I copy and paste now, copy, paste, I'm still just going to get a rectangle. Can you spot why that happened? It's because when I made the copy, I was on layer 2, and when I paste, it made layer 3 for me. If I come back to the background, use the lasso tool here, let's grab this blue part here, copy, paste, move tool, click and drag. Now it has grabbed a piece of the background. So that's a really important lesson. When you're doing any selections, always make sure you're on the correct layer. To find out which layer you're on, because you get a little thumbnail here, but it can be quite hard to see, you can toggle each layer on and off, like that. So it's sort of winking. If I turn the background layer off, you can see that these layers are transparent except for little pieces of artwork on there. So that can be quite confusing when you first start using Photoshop and start working with layers, is figuring out exactly what you're looking at and how to select that. Sometimes you have to join layers together by flattening them. Okay, I'm going to click on the background layer again. The next tool we're going to look at again is the Lasso Tool, and I use this one quite often. It's the Polygonal Lasso Tool, Polygonal Lasso Tool. Again, really good for quick selection. So if I like this piece of pink here, this works a lot like a spider. So each click, it drops a piece of the web. You can quickly and accurately get around the outside, and you can see that those are all straight lines. So if I copy and paste, get my Move tool, we can see that the item that has been pasted, this new layer 5, has got those sharp, crisp edges with straight lines. So that's the Polygonal Lasso Tool. The next tool I want to show you is called the Magic Wand tool, and I'm showing you this one first because it's an older tool, and we'll look at the Quick Selection tool next. So the Magic Wand tool works by selecting, if I go on the background layer, I'll turn all these layers off for a moment, just hidden their visibility, click on the background layer, The Magic Wand tool works by selecting similar colours, so that's all it can do. Remember, Photoshop's magic is just looking at the individual pixels and seeing if they're the same colour, the same transparency, and whether or not they're touching one another. So if I click on this pink, I would expect to get all this pink around here, and there's a join here, and get this piece as well. I would expect not to get this piece over here. So let's click and find out. So we can see that it has indeed selected those parts there. It has not selected these because they're not the same colour pink. If I zoom in, you can see that these are two different colours. And it has not selected this, which is indeed the same pink, but it doesn't touch that pink, so it's not a contiguous piece of pink. There's a gap here, like a moat, if you will. If I want to add this piece on as well, so I've got one selection already going, this big piece of pink over to the left, and I want to add this piece, I can add to a currently existing selection. To do that, I hold Shift, and with any of the selection tools, if you hold Shift, you'll get a little plus symbol, click, and now that is selected as well. If I decide I don't want that, I can also take things away from a selection. To take something away, you hold Alt or Option, you get a minus, click, and it will take it away. Very, very handy. Another way to approach that, if you've got this part here on the left, the pink selected, and you want this part here as well, but maybe it's a really tricky shape, or maybe there's hundreds of little pink pieces, and it would take you forever to go Shift, click, 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 click. Instead, what you can do is come up to Select, and go down to Similar, and then it will look for colours that are the same, and grab those as well. You can adjust how it's sampling up here with the tolerance. So this is the tolerance of the Magic Wand. So when you do your initial Magic Wand click, if it's grabbing too much, you can put the tolerance down. If it's grabbing not enough, you can put the tolerance up. Okay, so I've got this selection here and it's all pink. What do I want to do with it? Well, the selection, although we've made it and it's on the background layer at the moment, the selection doesn't have to stay on the background layer. The selection can be independent of the layer. Remember, it's just an invisible demarcation, an invisible fence, if you like. I'm going to come over to the Layers panel, and right down the bottom there's this little icon that looks like a page. That means New Layer, create a new layer. So if I click on it, it will make a new layer, and it's made layer 6. See, it's counted them up for me. So now this selection is on the active layer, which is layer 6. I've got this green, which is the same green from here, and I'm going to get my paint bucket tool and do a click, and all of the area that is selected has just been turned green. I can then also make further edits to it. So I could get, let's say, a light green, and I can go and highlight the edges, or I can put spots. Make a gherkin. I could change my brush to be quite large and quite soft and reasonably transparent. I can soften parts and lighten parts. So let's just use a paler green. And I've still got that selection running. Once I'm happy with that, I'll use Command or Control D to deselect. Remember, that's available under the Select menu here. So what I did there was I used the Magic Wand. I clicked on the pink to select the pink. I then went Select Similar and grabbed that extra bit of pink that was over here. I then came down here and clicked on New Layer. It made me a new layer. The selection was active and there was nothing in the selection, when I had this new layer 6 selected. So then I used the paint bucket to fill it with green, and then I used the brush and a paler green to add some decoration. If I turn off the background layer visibility, we can see that that is all that is on layer 6. Okay, the last selection tool that I'd like to show you, just quickly saved. You should always save using the shortcut Control Command S about every 5 minutes. The last tool for selection that I'd like to show you is the Quick Selection tool. So the Magic Wand is great, but the Quick Selection tool can be much faster in certain circumstances. It works like a brush with the power of the Magic Wand. So you paint it on, and it knows where edges are. So if I want to grab just this piece of pink here, I'm going to go to the background layer because that's where it is. I'm actually going to turn off this new layer 6. So I'm just again looking at the background layer. And there we go, painted on. If my brush is too big, I can just make it smaller and hop in there. So we've got size up here, so similar to the brush, size, hardness, and we can change spacing. If I don't want that bit in the middle selected, this part here, I can hold Alt or Option and just minus that away, just paint it out. This works pretty well with simple shapes with clear edges. You see up here, it hasn't done such a good job here because the edge gets a bit rough. So then I can do something with it. So in this case I'm just going to go copy, paste, or make a new layer for me, grab my move tool, now I can move that part of the image. If I've got a layer such as this one here, layer 7, that I really like, and I want to use more and more of it, I can duplicate this layer. There's a couple of ways to do that. I was initially taught by dragging the layer onto the new layer icon, so we get layer 7 copy. But there's an even quicker way. If you use select the layer you want to copy, and just go Control and Command J to jump the layer, you can get a copy that way as well. Very quick way of making repetitive objects in your artwork. Okay, save your file. That will do for now.